I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here we are. My name's Tom, and I always believed I had a pretty straightforward, solid relationship with my wife, Lisa. We'd been married for about 6 years, and honestly, things had started to feel a little too routine lately. We weren't fighting or anything, but I could tell the spark was dulling. Still, I figured every marriage has its ups and downs, right? Nothing out of the ordinary. It all started about 3 months ago. Lisa had this friend, Mike, an old childhood buddy of hers who had recently gone through a messy divorce. She invited him to stay with us temporarily, saying he needed some support and a place to crash until he got back on his feet. I was okay with it at first. I mean, I knew Mike from college and he seemed like a decent guy. Plus, Lisa kept insisting it was just support, that they were just old friends and nothing more. But things changed. Slowly, I started noticing odd things. She'd come home later than usual, sometimes late enough that I thought she was working late. But then I'd find her. Phone in the bedroom with messages she'd quickly hide when I got near. She'd be more defensive when I asked about her plans, brushing me off like I was paranoid or imagining things. The worst part, she seemed different, more distant, more irritable, like she was hiding something. One thing that really hit me was the way she'd suddenly become obsessed with her phone. She'd take it everywhere with her, even to the bathroom. She used to be pretty open about her texts and calls, but now she kept her phone locked and she'd get super defensive if I even glanced at her screen. I brushed it off at first. Maybe she was just being protective of her privacy, but deep down I knew something was off. Then came the night I found her phone on the nightstand with a message from Mike that said, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, it's been too long." I froze. My heart skipped a beat. I stared at that message for a long moment. I started piecing things together, her behavior, the late nights, the secretive phone habits, and I realized that whatever was going on, it wasn't just friendly support anymore. The next day, I decided I needed to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I waited until she was out grocery shopping, and that's when I grabbed her phone, unlocked it, and scrolled through her messages. I saw enough to confirm my suspicions. She wasn't just helping Mike get through his divorce. They crossed a line, and it was clear from the texts, the photos she'd sent, and the way she talked about him, like he was more than just a friend. When she got back, I was waiting for her in the living room, my stomach in knots. She looked surprised, defensive even, when I held up her phone and asked her what the hell was going on. Her face twisted into a sneer, and she started with the typical bullshit, saying I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I was reading too much into things. She insisted they were just support, and that I was being jealous and insecure. But I could see right through her lies. I knew the truth now, and I was furious. How could she do this? I'd been faithful, supportive, patient, and she was out there lying, cheating, sneaking around with her childhood friend Mike. All the while I'd been her support system, her husband, the guy who was supposed to be her partner. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly crushed. It was like I had been living with a stranger that whole time, someone I didn't even recognize. The worst part, I knew this was just the beginning of something much darker. After I confronted her with her phone in my hand, Lisa started spinning her usual bullshit. She looked me dead in the eye and told me I was overthinking, that Mike was just a supportive friend, and that I was jealous because I didn't understand the bond they shared. She said I was insecure, that I was imagining things, and that I was pushing her away with my paranoia. Honestly, hearing her lie so fluently made my stomach turn. It was like watching someone put on a performance, and I was the only one who saw through it. I didn't say much at first. I was too stunned, too angry. Instead, I just stared at her, trying to process what I just uncovered. My mind was racing, flipping through all the little signs I'd ignored or dismissed her. Secretive texting, the late nights, the way she'd suddenly become so dismissive of me. I felt a crushing sense of betrayal. How many nights had she met him? How long had this been going on behind my back? I felt like a fool, sitting there in my own house, discovering that the woman I loved had been sneaking around with her childhood friend, the guy who was supposed to be just a support system. I remember thinking I should be angry, outraged, but instead I felt numb. I couldn't believe she had lied so effortlessly, so convincingly. I wanted to scream, but somehow I just sat there trying to hold it together. After that, I told her I needed some time to think. She started crying, acting all innocent like I was the one who'd gone crazy. That made me even angrier. How could she play the victim now? She had been lying to my face, hiding her affair, and she had the audacity to cry and act like I was the one making a mistake. That night was a mess. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, all her lies, the way she'd looked at him in the support room we'd renovated, her private space, while I was just pretending to be okay with it. It hit me hard. I'd built my entire life with her, trusted her completely, and now I realized she'd been living a double life. I felt so stupid, so betrayed. All those years I thought we had something real. Turns out she'd been feeding her emotional and physical affair right under my nose. The thing that cut the deepest was how she kept lying about everything. Even when I confronted her, she insisted she loved me, that it was just support, that nothing serious happened, but I knew better. I saw the messages, the screenshots, the way they texted each other like they were lovers. It was so blatant. And her reaction, defensive, bitchy, dismissive, made it clear she didn't care how much she was hurting me. I felt a mix of rage, heartbreak, and confusion. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs. Did I really know her at all? Had I been blind this whole time? Or was she just really good at hiding it? The betrayal cut so deep, it made me question everything about us. I kept thinking, how do I move on from this? How do I come back from being so blindsided? I knew I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I had to decide what to do next. But honestly, all I wanted was to scream at her, tell her how much she'd hurt me, and then walk out that door. I was furious that she'd used the support excuse, like her affair with Mike was some kind of innocent mistake. No, it was. It was deliberate, calculated, and cruel. I realized I was at a crossroads. Confront her further, try to salvage what was left, or just cut my losses and get out. Either way, I knew I'd never look at her the same way again, and that hurt worse than anything. The next few days after that confrontation were a blur. Lisa kept trying to smooth things over, acting like nothing had changed, but I wasn't buying it. She would come home, act sweet, pretend everything was normal, but I could see the flicker of guilt in her eyes, if she even had any. Mostly she just snapped at me, called me paranoid or overreacting, like I was the one to blame for feeling betrayed. Honestly, her bitchy attitude only made me angrier. She'd throw her head back, roll her eyes when I'd bring up the topic, and dismiss my concerns like I was some jealous, insecure idiot. One night, I came home early from work just to catch her off guard. I wanted to see if she'd slip up, something, anything, to prove she was still sneaking around. Sure enough, I walked in and found her in our bedroom, texting on her phone. She quickly slammed it down and gave me that fake innocent look. That was the final straw. I saw enough. I realized she had zero intention of stopping or even trying to hide it anymore. She thought she had me fooled, that I was too naive to catch her. But I was done playing that game. I decided I needed proof, something concrete that I could use if I decided to confront her again, or worse, take legal action. So I started discreetly sneaking around myself. I installed a spy app on her phone, and I also checked her social media accounts when she wasn't around. It wasn't long before I found more damning evidence, photos of her and Mike together, even some explicit messages that left no room for doubt. They'd been meeting up without my knowledge, in the support room I'd thought was just her support space, which was now just their secret hideaway. I felt sick just thinking about how many nights she'd been with him there, while I'd been at work or out with friends, completely in the dark. The worst part was how she lied through her teeth when I brought up the evidence. She told me she was just helping him through a tough time, that they were old friends who'd never crossed that line before. She insisted they were just supporting each other, that I was jealous and insecure. That woman could lie with such ease. Her face would shift into that bitchy sneer, and she'd look me dead in the eyes and deny everything, even when I had proof staring right at her. It made me realize she had no remorse, no shame. She was just a typical manipulative bitch, and I was naive for believing she could be different. I started to see her for who she really was, a liar, a cheater, and someone who didn't care about my feelings. Every discovery felt like a punch to the gut, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I also started to get angry, not just at her, but at myself. How did I miss all the signs? How did I let her get away with this? I'd been such a good husband, supportive and caring, and she had repaid me with lying, sneaking around, and betraying everything we built. I decided I had to confront her again, but this time I was prepared. I sat her down, showed her the evidence, and told her I'd had enough. She looked furious. Her bitchy side really came out then, calling me a psycho, saying I was crazy for spying on her. She doubled down with her lies, saying there was nothing going on, that I was just imagining things again, that I was paranoid. But I wasn't having it anymore. I'd seen too much. I told her I was done, that I needed a break to think about whether I wanted to stay married to someone who lied to my face like that. That moment was a turning point. I could see her cracks, her facade starting to crumble. The more she denied, the more I realized. I couldn't keep pretending. I felt a mix of heartbreak, rage, and disappointment. I'd trusted her with everything, and she'd thrown it all away for some idiot who was just a childhood friend. The betrayal was so deep I wondered if I'd ever recover from it. I kept asking myself whether I should forgive, whether I could ever trust her again, or if I should just walk away for good. But right now, I knew one thing. I wasn't going to be a fool again. I'd been played for a sucker, and I needed to figure out what my next move was fast. The days that followed were some of the most brutal of my life. I stayed in that limbo, caught between anger and sadness, trying to piece everything back together but knowing deep down that nothing would be the same. Lisa, of course, kept up her act, acting remorseful, crying, begging me to forgive her. She'd say she was sorry, that she never meant to hurt me, that it was just a mistake she'd never do again. But her words just made me want to scream. I saw through her bullshit now. I knew she was lying, that she was trying to manipulate me into staying. I felt like I was losing my mind. Every time I looked at her, I saw a stranger, someone who had lied, cheated, and betrayed everything I thought we built. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat properly. The betrayal cut so deep that I started questioning everything, my self-worth, my judgment, whether I'd ever be able to trust anyone again. I was spiraling into a dark place, and honestly, I was ready to walk away, even if it meant starting over alone. But then I remembered something my grandfather used to say: the truth always comes out in the end. I decided I couldn't let her manipulate me anymore. I gathered all the evidence I had, screenshots, messages, photos, and decided I'd confront her one last time with everything. No more hiding, no more pretending. I wanted her to see that I knew the truth, that I had proof, and that I was done playing her game. That confrontation was a disaster. I laid everything out on the table, showed her the messages, the photos, the screenshots. Her face twisted into that bitchy sneer she always wore when she was angry or trying to manipulate a situation. She kept insisting that I was crazy, that I was just jealous and insecure, that she loved me and that I was overreacting. I had never seen her so defiant, so dismissive. It was like she thought she could lie her way out of everything, that I'd just back down and forget it ever happened. But I didn't back down. I told her I was done. I told her I didn't want to be married to someone who lied, cheated, and disrespected me like this. I told her I was filing for divorce, that I wanted her out of the house, and that I wanted nothing more to do with her. I saw her eyes narrow, her face flush with anger, but I didn't care. This was the end of our story, or so I thought at the time. That night I started packing my things. I couldn't stay in the same house with her anymore. The betrayal had broken whatever fragile trust we had left. I didn't sleep a wink. As I packed, I kept thinking about how I'd let myself be so blind, how I'd been played for a fool, and how I'd trusted someone who clearly didn't care about me. It was a bitter pill, and honestly, I felt like I was losing myself in the process. The most surreal part was how she reacted. Instead of being remorseful or begging for forgiveness, she just sat there, looking at me with that bitchy sneer, saying I was overreacting again, that I was making a huge mistake. She kept trying to guilt-trip me, saying I was ruining our marriage, that I was the one pushing her away. I knew she was just trying to manipulate me into staying, but I was too exhausted, too fed up to fall for her tricks. I'd made my decision. I was done. I just wanted to get out before I said or did something I'd regret. As I left, I felt a strange mixture of relief and heartbreak. Part of me was glad to be free from her lies and manipulation, but another part was devastated that I'd lost what I thought was forever. I kept thinking about all the moments I'd missed, all the signs I'd ignored, and how I'd trusted her with my heart for so long. I wondered if I'd ever find someone who wouldn't betray me like this, or if I'd just be alone forever. Honestly, I didn't have the answers then. All I knew was that I had to get out of that house and try to piece myself back together. I didn't want to live in a lie anymore. After moving out, life didn't suddenly become easier, but at least I was finally breathing again. I rented a small apartment nearby, just enough space to get away from the chaos, and started distancing myself from her entirely. I cut off all communication, blocked her on everything. I knew I needed time to heal, to figure out what I really wanted, but honestly, I was numb most days. The betrayal weighed so heavily on me that I felt like I was carrying a mountain of regret and anger every single morning. People kept telling me I should be angry, that I should hate her, but the truth is, I just felt hurt. Hurt that I'd trusted her so completely. Hurt that I'd given her everything and she'd thrown it away for a guy she'd known since childhood. I kept replaying all the good times, all the moments I thought were real, and how they'd been shattered in an instant. It's like my entire world was upside down now, all because she thought she could get away with lying and cheating. I tried to keep busy. I threw myself into work, started working out more, and even went on a couple of dates, even though it felt weird and awkward. But no matter what I did, the pain lingered. I kept asking myself if I'd done something wrong, if I should have seen the signs, if I was just too blind to realize how little she cared. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that the only thing I could control was how I responded to her betrayal. I decided I wasn't going to be the guy who let this ruin him. I wanted to come out of it stronger. The whole process was a roller coaster. Some days I'd wake up furious, wanting to confront her again, scream at her for every lie, every betrayal. Other days, I'd feel just numb, like I was watching my life from a distance. I even considered reaching out, just to ask her why she did it, why she threw everything away for some childhood friend who was just supposed to be her support. But I knew that wouldn't change anything. She was who she was, and I was better off without her. One thing I've realized is that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to fix. Even if she begged me to take her back now, I don't think I could. My heart's been damaged, and I'm not sure it can be repaired. That hurts to admit, but I don't see a way back. I've learned that some betrayals cut so deep that they leave scars you carry forever. And honestly, I'm still trying to figure out how to live with them. Looking back, I have a lot of mixed feelings: anger, sadness, disappointment. But mostly I feel relief. Relief that I finally took control of my life instead of living in her shadow. I've started to rebuild myself piece by piece. I've learned that no matter how much you want to believe in someone, sometimes you have to accept that they're simply not who you thought they were. And that's okay. It's a hard lesson, but I think it's one I needed to learn the hard way. Now, I'm just trying to focus on myself and find a way to move forward. I don't know where this is all heading, but I do know I'll never let myself be blindsided like that again. Trust is earned, not given, and I have to be smarter about who I let into my life. I guess what I really want to say is, if you're in a relationship and you're feeling uneasy, don't ignore those feelings. Because once the trust is broken, it's damn hard to get it back. And sometimes the cost is too high. Now, looking back, I realize this whole ordeal has completely changed me. I used to think I was pretty good at reading people, but I was so wrong about her. I thought we had a solid foundation, but it was just a house built on sand. That house collapsed the moment I found out about her affair with Mike, and honestly, I don't think I'll ever fully recover from the betrayal. Still, I've come to accept what happened, and I've learned a lot about myself in the process. One thing I know for sure is that I'll never tolerate being lied to again. If anything, I've become more cautious, more guarded. I don't trust easily anymore, and that's probably a good thing. I've also realized that sometimes the worst pain is what you don't see coming, and you can't prepare for it until it happens. The key, I suppose, is to listen to your gut and never ignore those small signs of trouble, because if you do, You might end up losing everything, just like I did. This whole experience has also made me value honesty and loyalty more than ever. I used to take those things for granted, but now I see how fragile they really are. I've learned that some people are just incapable of being faithful, no matter how much you love them or how much effort you put in. And that's a hard truth to swallow, that sometimes love isn't enough to save a relationship when the foundation is rotten. Despite everything, I don't hold on to hatred or revenge. I've realized that forgiveness isn't about excusing what she did, but about freeing myself from the poison of resentment. Forgiveness is for me, not her. I want to move on to find peace within myself and to build a future that's based on honesty and respect, things I thought I had with her but clearly didn't. So here's what I want anyone reading this to take away. Listen to your instincts. Don't ignore the small signals because they're often the first warning signs. Trust is a precious thing. Once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. And if you find yourself in a similar situation, don't be afraid to walk away. Sometimes, the greatest act of love you can give yourself is to let go and start over. Honestly, it's not easy, not by a long shot. But I believe that in the end, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I may have lost my marriage, but I've gained something much more valuable: self-respect, clarity, and the understanding that I deserve better. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'm finally ready to face it. That's the best lesson I could have learned from all this chaos.